The power of focus. Introduction. Let's see if the following scenario sounds familiar to you. You're working on a project and you get distracted. You brush off this distraction as a one-time deal and you keep working. Minutes later, you're distracted again. You shift over to another project, you get a phone call, and you remember you need to check some emails. Later on in the day, you realize you never got around to the first project you were working on. You could chalk it up to distractions. We all live in a digital world, and we've become activity addicts. If we don't have our full attention on something, the outcome won't be whole either. That could mean work, relationships, friendships, or health. In order to give something your all, you need to prioritize your focus. What do we mean by focus? Focus is defined as the center of interest or activity. So if you're working on something and you're not putting it at the center of your interest or activity, you're not giving it your all. You're placing it in a chain of orbiting priorities, and rather than giving it your 100%, you're splitting up its importance with other revolving tasks. Multitasking can be great. Some even claim it is sometimes necessary. However, multitasking still requires focus. It doesn't matter if you want to live life as a multitasker or a single tasker. Either way, if you're going to get stuff done, you have to learn how to focus on the task at hand and refrain from distractions that break the focus. This might sound like a lot, but hey, you're focusing on it, right? The key is to follow a set of steps, to have a process in place. That garners attention and focus and keeps you on track for the moments when you might get sidetracked. We'll take you through a 6-step process on how to stay focused. As you read along, take note of how often you find your mind wandering. That's okay, it happens. And it's natural. But use this as a time to get a grasp of how your mind works. We'll tap into that later on this ebook. Ready to focus? Let's go. The power of focus. You're probably familiar enough with the word, and you've invested in learning how to get a better sense of focus in your life. But why is it so important? Is it more important than other things, like speed or timeliness? More important isn't the right way to describe it, but it absolutely is essential. Let's take it from some of the experts. Warren Buffett is one of the most successful investors in the world. He now sits as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway and has lived a life of entrepreneurial endeavors and strategic investments. Buffett has a 5-25 rule, which states that out of 25 things you'd like to achieve, your top 5 should be the only ones that get your focus. Otherwise, you're derailing yourself from your main goals by splitting your attention among so many. It may sound crazy, but at the end of the day, your concentration exists because you want to accomplish something, because you have something to complete, because you want to move on and progress with your life. It doesn't take 25 steps to get there. Most of the time, it only takes 5. Focus on those 5. Another trusty name is Bill Gates. If Bill Gates does it, we should, right? Okay, it's not always a game of monkey see, monkey do, but in this case, we should all be following Bill. In response to the question, what factor do you feel has been the most important in getting to where you've gotten in life? Gates says, focus. This focus isn't the same for everyone. For Gates, it began with computers. For you, it might be something entirely different. The critical takeaway is that focus is a necessary trait to have if you want to be successful. On the flip side, a lack of focus brings a whole entourage of adverse side effects. Think about taking a picture. You point your phone at an object, maybe a person or a meal, whatever works for your Instagram, and the first thing you do is grab focus. An out-of-focus picture displays a lot of pixels, but nothing clear. You may be getting a lot of information at once, but you can't quite discern what it is. Focus paints you a whole picture and leads you to results. The same applies to your work ethic. If you're not focused, you can't get simple tasks done. Even worse, you can't get big tasks done in order to reach your goals. You're probably aware of the feeling of losing focus. Sometimes it creeps up on you when you have major deadlines, and you begin to realize you're juggling too many balls rather than concentrating on one at a time. Other times, you lack focus from the start. You're working on something and you can't seem to conjure up the motivation to get it done. You'll welcome any and all distractions, and your focus seems to be on procrastination, and even that focus gets broken. But let's take a closer look at focus. We're going to look at what happens to your brain when you lose focus. There's a system that is in charge of stopping movement in your body. This system, called the subthalamic nucleus brain system, goes hand in hand with fight or flight. Not only is it involved with the body, but it's involved with your cognitive patterns. What does that have to do with focus? That was a test. You're losing focus. Keep reading, stay focused. What happens is you are confronted with new information, an activity, a person, bad news, good news, etc. And when you get that new information, your body, or in this case your mind, clears out everything else that is going on. Your mind stops doing all the thinking that it has been doing, and then it loses focus. This may be great for situations of danger because it tells your brain to stop everything else and take in the new information so that it can act quickly. But in most cases of daily life and activities, it's not a great thing. It results in the loss of your focus, and it ends up being a pretty constant thing throughout your day. The good news is you can combat this. You can combat all of your concentration issues, and we're here to keep you focused on that path. It'll take some time, but stick around and give us all ears. We'll tackle some of the best ways to deal with focus issues. The 6-step focus system. We could pick 2 steps or 10 steps, but 6 steps are just the right amount. Not too much to focus on and not too little to focus on. You must follow these steps and focus on one step at a time. Not to mention, it's a great test of how focused or unfocused you can be. Follow along and we'll work our magic. The big picture. Why are you reading this? What are you hoping for? These questions may seem silly, but take some time to reread them. And again, and again. You're reading this ebook for a reason. You've stayed focused on this book for a reason. Your reason could be big or small. It could be related to your job or your personal life. It could be random or totally planned. Regardless of your reason or reasons, the vital thing to acknowledge is that you are looking to sharpen your focus. That is your big picture. It's your why. And it's precisely what you'll use as you proceed through this guide and ultimately through life from here on. Defining your big picture is about knowing what you want. We'll start with a big picture goal or goals. But when we get caught up in the day-to-day and we let life distract us, that big picture gets painted over by lots of other little pictures. We end up with a collage of small goals, big goals, and goals that contradict one another. It's time to scrap that collage and start with a blank canvas. This canvas needs to illustrate your big picture, your ultimate destination, and it needs to be untouched in order to capture and retain your focus. To define your big picture with focus in the foreground, start with these 3 steps. 1. Figure out what you like. What are your interests and preferences, and how do they tie into your big dreams? It may sound obvious, but your dreams really only come from your interests. If you want to be a writer, you aren't going to set goals to learn how to fly a plane, right? Your goals and your interests go hand in hand. If you already know what you like and want, that's great. If not, there are plenty of ways to figure it out. Begin by thinking about who you've been and what you've enjoyed your entire life. Have you always gravitated toward athletics or numbers? Do you like reading books? Or do you prefer to be exploring a forest? You can also try taking personality tests. There are plenty of resources out there for you, including the Myers-Briggs personality test or the DISC assessment. Ask friends and family members to define you in their own words. Ask for their input. They may have some ideas of what you're like that you didn't even think about on your own. 2. Ask yourself questions. and they can't be easy ones. Now that you know what you like and what you're shooting for, you need to understand exactly how determined you are and what you want your end goal to be. Start by asking yourself how you want to leave this world. If you were to leave tomorrow, what would you want people to remember you as? Basically, you want to get to the crux of the type of legacy you'd like to leave behind. This will take time, so grab a pen and paper and get to work. No cheating. Then, try to think of words you'd like to associate yourself with. Do you want to be known for being creative or analytical? Do you view yourself as a problem solver or an emotion-based person? Think about the words that resonate with you most. Again, write them down. List them out. Treat these as tiny pixels of your big picture frame. 3. Get a little creative and ambitious. This last step comes off as unrealistic, but it's actually a significant step in the process. When you're cooking up a big picture goal for yourself, you need to start off by being a little far-fetched with your ideas. Remove all limitations and some realities and say, what do I want to do if the options are limitless? We're taking time and resources and money out of the equation here because although they're important, we need to get to the core of what you seek. Of course, you may need to alter your plan a bit, and you may not be able to shoot exactly for this far-fetched idea, but it's an excellent way to filter through the possibilities and get to the crux of your goals. Let's say you end up realizing that your ultimate goal would be to own a car dealership. That may not happen right away, but this will help steer you, pun intended, in the right direction. Once you have an idea of your big picture, it's time to ask yourself the big questions. What matters to me? You'll want to whittle down the swirling possibilities and seemingly endless options and pinpoint what matters to you most. It's as if you were to line up several different contenders for your big picture, analyze them, critique them, and decide on one big picture. Easier said than done, though. So you may want to come up with a process for this. Begin by listing out all of the things that matter to you, irrespective of your big picture goals. Here are a few ideas to get you started. Professional life, family life, money, job stability, health, fitness, hobbies, art or creative passions, doing what you love to do every day, location, lifestyle. There are plenty of other deciding factors, but these are some key ones. List out the things that matter most to you. Once you've listed them out and had a second to think about each of them, try to rank them in order of importance. Eventually, narrow it down to 5. This takes us back to the 5-25 rule, a la Warren Buffett. Full circle. These 5 themes should be held constant in your mission to finding and retaining focus. Over time, they may change, but for now, you should hold your big picture goal to these 5 things. That way, the big picture that matters most will be based on smaller things that also matter a lot to you. Assess. After some mulling and thoughtful consideration, you came up with your big picture. You may not know how you're getting there, but you know what you want. At this point, your focus is already so much better. Rather than sit down and push papers around at work, you're going to work with purpose because you know that there's a big goal waiting for you, dependent upon your efforts. Anytime you get distracted or derailed from your goals, you can remind yourself of your big picture. That leads us to step 2, assess. We're going to move on from the big picture because we established that, and transition to the ins and outs of your focus. Begin by thinking about your current work processes. Think about how you focus on tasks, how you tackle new assignments, how long you can work on something without getting distracted. Let's start by defining your focus. At this point, you may not know if you're focused or easily distracted. It's hard to tell. Signs that you're focused. You're alert and energized throughout the day. You have a spring in your step, and you're not easily derailed from your alertness. You're able to set goals for yourself. You tackle your goals by breaking them into small goals, tackling those, and then working your way up to your big goals, aka your big picture. When you need a break, you take one, but you don't need to be on a break for too long. You're able to get back to work and get back on track after breaks. Signs that you are not focused? You often find your mind wandering and drifting to another topic. You daydream often. You pick up your phone and get distracted by it quickly. When someone approaches you and engages you in conversation, you can't seem to get back on track, or if you do, you find yourself having a hard time with it. You can't keep track of your progress. Either way, it's good news. It's okay if you're easily distracted, that's fixable. And if you already have a rock-solid foundation of focus, that's good news too. Assessing your focus is a key part of success. You can always improve your attention, but it's good to get a baseline before you begin to develop it. As you assess your focus, look at it from your own perspective. Assess has a formal ring to it. It sounds more like an exam than a fun and helpful exercise. But it's definitely the latter of those two, so treat it that way. You're not assessing to give yourself a pass-fail grade. Instead, you're looking to improve. 1. Stop and listen. Begin by listening to yourself. Be in tune with your thoughts, goals, ideas, and questions. Throughout the process, you're looking to improve what you have going for you right now. Listen to that voice in your head. Listen to your body and your mind at all hours of the day. Make a note of things. It helps to have a designated period of assessing so that you can keep track of everything. Look at when you do your work best. Do you exercise best in the morning or at night? Do you prefer to get most of your tedious work out of the way, or do you save it for last? When you're in a deep dive, how long does it take you to accomplish things? These are the type of things you should be listening to. 2. Try something new. The next stage is one of experimentation. Think of listening to yourself as a way to isolate all variables and unknowns. You're able to capture the essence of you, your work ethic, what works for you, and what doesn't. The second part of assessing is when you mix things up and see what works and what doesn't. Now that you know what you like and how you optimize your existing work processes, it's time to figure out new approaches. Let's say you typically stay focused in silence. Mix it up by trying to work with headphones. Take note of how you feel. Did you improve? Was it significantly worse? Try it out with time management. If you usually use simple lists, try a project management tool or a more elaborate list structure. Again, test it out and observe how it impacts your overall focus and work capabilities. Now, it's important to make sure you don't just aimlessly try anything and everything. You should only be trying things that you genuinely believe will have a positive impact on your focus habits. Take some time beforehand to decide what these something new items will be. 3. Learn from your failures. In fact, let's not even call it a failure. Learn from these lessons. If you don't succeed with a particular approach, there's no need to fret about it or beat yourself up. Chalk it up to a no-go and apply that to lessons down the road. As you continue to read this ebook, remind yourself not to get overwhelmed. There are lots of suggestions here, and for that reason, you may lose focus just by reading through. Don't let that happen, though. Take each tip as a possible solution for you, a potential step to successful concentration, and only focus on the ones that really work for you. If a step doesn't work for you, that's perfectly fine. Move past it and make a note of it that it's not for you. Eliminate. Let's go back to the camera example, grabbing focus with a camera or phone. When you tap a certain area to grab focus, you eliminate the focus on other areas of the frame. If you don't tap this area, the lens will focus on everything, which is why it gets blurry. You can only give 100% to one thing. but your camera is giving 50% to 500 different things. The same applies to your mind. This step is all about deciding your ultimate focus, determining what you want to give your 100% to, deciding which part of the frame you want to be clear, and allowing everything else to be a bit more blurred. It's the elimination stage, deciding what distractions you can eliminate in your life. This is a critical step in the process because up until this point, you've come up with goals and ideas, but you haven't come up with a way to eliminate distractions. Distractions are inevitable, especially in today's world, with technology, interconnectivity, and phone dependence. So removing some distractions is a must. Follow some or all of these steps. 1. Schedule it out. If you don't already follow a planner or calendar, that's the first thing you should do. In that planner, schedule out your distractions. Yep, you read that right. Allot some time for your distractions. We know you're going to have them, whether it's your phone or your friends or your dog. That's acceptable. You're human. Distractions happen. What isn't okay is allowing distractions to take over your life. They have the propensity to do that if you don't allocate time for them. So just make sure to schedule out some time for your distractions. Suppose you have a favorite show that airs every Monday night at 7. Put that in your planner and hold yourself to it. That way, when you're trying to wrap up an assignment and it's 6, you won't be tempted to work with the TV in the background because you know you'll have some R&R time coming up. 2. Schedule time for others. Depending on the nature of your job, you may often find yourself being interrupted by others. Whether you have an office or you work remote, human distractions are everywhere. Just like you schedule time for personal distractions, schedule some time for human distractions. You may opt for office hours when you allocate 3 to 4 hours answering questions for coworkers, family members, or peers. Or you may set aside a particular time every day to respond to emails and phone calls. Try to think about what distracts you most. Go from there and use that as a baseline to decide how you want to schedule your time accordingly. 3. Define and defy the culprit. We're often inclined to open different things while we're working on something. You may think to yourself, I won't respond to any emails, but I just need to check really quick. The problem with that is you're bringing up a self-induced distraction. As soon as you open that inbox or check your phone, you're welcoming a distraction into the mix. And even if you are good about sticking to your word, that distraction takes up a little piece of your mind. Soon enough, you're sharing your mind with all kinds of distractions, flying in and out of it, and you're not giving 100% to your current task at hand. Take some time to think about those distractions. What are they? How often do they happen? Then, work towards defying them. Every time you reach for your phone, remind yourself that it won't bring any good to the situation. Tell yourself you can check your phone in 15 minutes when you're done with your work. Whatever it is that works for you, make sure you're firm about it. 4. Stop multitasking. We're so used to the glamour of being a multitasker. It feels like such a huge accomplishment, but in reality, there's a time and place for multitasking. If you multitask 24/7, how are you focusing your energy on other important assignments and projects? Chances are you're only focusing a portion of your efforts toward essential tasks. Your 100% becomes broken into smaller percentages, like 10% toward exercise and 10% toward family time, and so on and so forth. Use your schedule and force yourself to stop multitasking. It may seem counterintuitive, but it will boost your workflow immensely. 5. Target your habits. Habits can either be very good or very bad. If they're good, you're in the routine of doing things that are healthy and productive for yourself. That may mean working out regularly, communicating well, eating healthy food, and planning your life efficiently. On the flip side, bad habits can be the death of your success. You may not realize it while you're doing it, but bad habits are contagious. If you allow yourself to practice bad habits, You allow distractions and bad things to get in the way of your goals, your success, and ultimately, your happiness. Think about some of your habits, both good and bad. Don't limit this thought process to work-related practices. Think about your personal life, too. While you're pondering these habits, you may want to make a list of the ones you'd like to keep and the ones you'd like to rid from your life. It won't happen all at once. It takes time to break bad habits and introduce new habits. But once you're in the mindset of improving yourself, you'll be more on track to creating an unbreakable focus for yourself. 6. Work on your attitude. Distractions may always be there, but it begins and ends with you. You're approaching life a certain way, and it's up to you how you want it to go. Do you want to achieve big things? Do you want to establish yourself as an expert in your industry? Do you want to have a big family? Do you want to run a marathon? All of these things take focus. You heard that right. All of these things. There's no way to dream big without being focused on your dreams. Start with your attitude. Find a way to get yourself pumped up and take on these challenges. Be in tune with your attitude and your energy levels first thing in the morning and right before bed. Delegate. Delegating is tough for a lot of people, especially go-getters. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that you may need to give things off to other people, but it's a key step to success. Let's face it, you're not a superhero. You may be fast, smart, hardworking, and success-driven, but you can't be in 100 places at once doing 100 different things. Enter delegation, your friend, your mighty hero, and your new tool to a successful life of focus. Since it isn't necessarily intuitive, it's essential to learn how to delegate. 1. Define. Begin with defining which tasks are great candidates for delegation. You don't want to delegate something that you're an expert at. Similarly, you don't want to delegate a task off to someone when you really enjoy doing it. Think about which tasks derail your focus the most. Typically, these tasks will be small, menial tasks. This could mean cleaning your house or filling out a spreadsheet. Teachable tasks. These are things that you can easily teach someone. Tasks that someone else can take over without it being a cost to your business or productivity. Tasks you hate. Some things are less fun than others. If you're able to delegate tasks that you hate doing, you'll be able to fill your day with more productive, rewarding work, which keeps your focus in tip-top shape. Time-consuming tasks. If you have a lot of projects and some are more time-consuming than others, you may want to assess if you can delegate these to someone else. Be sure that these time-consuming tasks aren't a high priority and that you don't need to complete them yourself. If they're not, then hand them over to someone else. 2. Determine. Who should you hand a task to? This is always another tough but important question. Delegation is a game of strategy, and if you play it right, you and your peers can be really successful. You shouldn't be delegating all your tasks to one person. That will cause a ripple effect of unproductivity. What once made you lose focus will now make this person lose focus, and then we're back to square one. Now that we've established that, the next thing to keep in mind is that you shouldn't be delegating your tasks to the wrong people. This takes judgment and maybe some time, but it's an essential step in the delegation process. Make sure you're delegating tasks to people who are eager, willing, and able to take them on. For example, at work, you wouldn't want to hand over a big project to an intern or an assistant. Similarly, you wouldn't hire an 11-year-old with no experience to babysit your infant. It's all about gauging what makes the most sense and proceeding from there. Delegating isn't so hard after all. Sure, it takes practice, but everything does. With time and effort, it will begin to feel more natural for you, and you'll have an easier time focusing on what really matters to you. Prioritize. When you have a million things going on and you can't attack them all at once, your first inclination is probably to prioritize. You may not even realize how strategic you are by prioritizing tasks, but it's a great strategy, and it comes into play with focus. You can hone in on your goals and delegate all you want, but at the end of the day, some responsibilities remain, and there's only one of you to do them all. That's when your trusty friend prioritization is there to help. 1. Pick a method. To prioritize, begin by picking your method of organization. You won't be able to rank your to-do items in your head without a little bit of help, so you must create a method for your madness. You may opt for a handwritten list or a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. 2. Analyze your list. Once you have a way to keep everything in order, you'll want to organize and analyze that list. Take a look at your responsibilities and tasks at hand, analyze them, and sort through them. Some of them may be things you can put on the back burner. Others may be urgent. Use this time to label them so that you know how to proceed with your list. 3. Rank your priorities. We mentioned that some items may be urgent. That's something to really focus on. In this step, go through the remaining priorities. Label them as critical, non-urgent, time-sensitive, and not time-sensitive. You may have other relevant labels, but this is an excellent place to start. 4. Put a number on it. Before you can decide which items to attack first, you have to have a rough timetable for your plan. How long will each task take? Do you need time to plan before or after your responsibilities? Are there any quick tasks that you can knock out? This is especially important if you're working with deadlines, so be sure to take this step seriously and really give a reasonable time estimate for each of your items. 5. Sort it out. You now have a sense of what you need to do, when these things need to get done, and how much time everything takes. This is the fun part. Sort it all out. At this point, you should be putting the items at the top if they are time-sensitive and high priority. The process should feel natural, but you can always refer to these steps and make sure you're making good progress. A few other ways. If you don't want to follow a step-by-step method to prioritization, there are several other tactics you can follow. You can try out one of them or all of them. Pareto principle. At some point in your life, you've probably heard of the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. This says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your work. In other words, you can get a lot done in a little time, as long as it's the right time and you're motivated, inspired, and ready to get it done. Tap into that 20%. You'll need to do some self-exploration to find out what works best for you. Are you most inspired in the morning? Do you work best under a hard deadline? When are you operating at your fullest potential? It'll take some trial and error to nail this down, but once you do, you can optimize your workflow by always working at your best. Most important tasks. If you've ever heard someone refer to their MITs, they're talking about their most important tasks. Everyone has them, but it's not always so easy to pinpoint what they are. When you wake up in the morning, you already have a set of MITs. These are the things that you know you must get done by the end of the day. Some to-do list items are nice-to-have items, but your MITs are absolute must-dos. Write those out and pay attention to them. Utilize productivity tools. There are tons of tools out there for you to use to prioritize your tasks for the day. These are project management tools and productivity tools. They're on your side, and they'll help you mitigate your tasks so that you know which ones to focus on, when to focus on them, and how much time each of them is taking you. Why prioritize? Prioritizing lets you clear through the noise and really focus on what matters to you. With all of these methods, you're figuring out where your focus needs to be throughout the day or week, and you're coming up with a strategy to get you there. Plan. Let's take it back to the big picture. Delegating and prioritizing focus on the day-to-day, which is important, but we can't forget about our big picture focus. That focus is what drives you, incentivizes you, and pushes you to work for something bigger. When you're focusing on the big picture, you need to come up with an ultimate plan. This plan will keep you grounded. It will remind you of where your focus lies when it gets derailed. When you're caught up in the nitty-gritty, you can refer back to this plan to get you back on track. 1. Come up with an end goal. Your plan should never be aimless. When you construct a plan, whether that be daily, weekly, or yearly, make sure you have a focus on the outcome. This will drive all your actions forward and propel you in the right direction toward your big picture goals. 2. Remember your purpose and your why. Every plan you make should come back to your purpose. If your purpose is to be a digital marketer, your plan should revolve around that. If your plan is to create a portfolio of photographs, focus on that. Your focus is only as good as your defined purpose. So keep that in mind and remember your purpose when you create your plans. 3. Create a list of actionable items. Sometimes we get so caught up in the minutiae of planning that we forget to actually plan. Don't let that happen. Instead, make sure your strategy includes a list of actionable items so that you have a step-by-step process to focus on for the day. If you don't have actionable items, every time you refer to your plan, you'll waste a little bit of time trying to discern what you should do or what step you should take. On your plan, outline exactly what you need to do to keep your focus on your big picture. Conclusion. Are you still with us? How's your focus level? You're off to a good start because you've stuck around for the whole shebang. It may seem simple, but it'll take some time and focus. But that's okay. That's half the fun. If you need to start small, start small. Or if you're ready to go all in, you can do that too. You now know the importance of focus in your life. You know that it begins with a big picture and an assessment of your focus patterns. It means cutting through the noise and eliminating unnecessary tasks and distractions that derail your focus. You know how to delegate and prioritize to boost your productivity. And you know that you need to make a plan to put everything into action. Focus leads to productivity, and similarly, a lack of focus typically makes you unproductive. The power of focus is real, and it is something that can be achieved. It may not happen overnight, most things don't, but eventually, you can learn how to be a focused person. Focusing on the right things, avoiding distractions, and working towards greatness to achieve your goals. The best time to start is now. Your future self, your tomorrow self, and your today self will thank you for narrowing in on something important to you and using strong focus to get you there. Plus, you've made it this far, so you're off to a great start. Good luck and happy focusing.